맞아.
We are learning more about how Ukraine managed to fend off repeated Russian attempts to advance on Kyiv in the early days, of course, of the war. Matt Rivers takes us to a town near the capital that was really key in keeping Russian forces at bay.
Outgoing fire from a frozen foxhole, not far from the flaming pieces of an exploding armored vehicle. As the quiet still of a nighttime bunker is shattered by what the soldier says was a direct hit right nearby. This is what happened in the tiny town of Moshun, just northwest of Ukraine's capital city. It was here, as much as anywhere else, that the Battle of Kyiv was won. By early March, Russian forces had flooded south, Ukraine's seat of power in its sights. They'd arrived just west of Moshun, occupying that entire area. The European River, the only thing between them and the town where Ukraine would make its stand.
Is it strange to just walk through this area now, when it's safe?
He says what's strange was being here when all hell broke loose. 3 Ukrainian soldiers who fought here took us around Moshun. Before the ground assault, they sent relentless artillery raining down. Just listen to this video taken by a soldier.
So they dug this trench here just across the river from Russian positions, of course, to take cover from things like this. So this would be spent ordnance, a rocket fired from a Russian attack helicopter here on the Ukrainian position.
Thinking they'd soften the town, the Russians decided it was time to strike. With this bridge destroyed, they built a pontoon bridge here and started sending special forces troops across the river. Across the river, the Ukrainians waited, some seen here, ready to fight back. Street battles raged, homes were shredded, houses now with so many bullet holes like freckles on face. The Russians, some seen here, actually took part of the town, but that success would be short-lived because the woods were up next. Moshun is surrounded by dense pine forests, a perfect area for Ukraine to stop and advance. Video shows Ukrainian troops lined up in neatly dug positions. The Russian troops would quickly come under heavy fire. Video shows the results. Multiple dead Russian soldiers in the snow.
That body was found right there, and there were several other Russian soldiers that were killed right in this area, including this soldier whose body armor is still left behind. This was not artillery unit versus artillery unit. Here in these woods in this town, it was infantry versus infantry. Close proximity fighting.
Sounds of explosions ripple around them. Ukrainian soldiers race toward an unseen enemy, carrying between them what is likely the kind of weapon to do something like this. Ukrainian drones capture the destruction of Russian armor on a lone road through the trees.
And here on the ground, you can still see the remnants of 2 destroyed armored personnel carriers. The body parts of the soldiers that were inside still in this area. Ukrainian 100 Russian soldiers and 40 armored vehicles made their way to this part of the forest. And if they were able to continue and get through, it could have changed the tide of the entire war.
Moshun sits only about 3 miles from Kyiv city limits and the center. Ukrainian troops tell us had the Russians broke through, the thousands of Russian troops just across the river would have made an all-out push into Kyiv. But a fierce Ukrainian counterattack turned the battle around quickly. Soldiers going house to house, retaking the town, even destroying the pontoon bridge Russia had used to bring soldiers across. Ukrainian forces also stripping what they could from the better supplied Russian soldiers. He says they suffered heavy losses, even though they dominated us in aircraft and drones and 10-1 in artillery. For these three soldiers, the victory in the Battle of Kyiv was something coming.
Should the rest of the world have been surprised?
Our army turned out to be one of the best in the world, and nobody was more surprised than the Russians, he said, adding one more thing in English. Matt Rivers, CNN, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Христа, добрый вечер. Я, как всегда, очень рад вас слышать и видеть. Вы знаете, неизменно наши интервью набирают миллионы просмотров, люди вам очень доверяют, и мне хотелось бы поговорить о том, что происходит сейчас. Вот какими глазами смотрите вы на театр военных действий в эти дни? Что происходит?
Ну, сложно сказать, потому что я думаю, что нет понимания, что стратегически происходит и что будет происходить в ближайшие несколько дней, даже у тех, которые пишут планы, а именно у россияне. Но то, что почти гарантированно видно, что доходит российская тактика, нельзя сказать стратегия, до уровня сатурации, то, что имею в виду, а именно, что нету возможности двигаться дальше, то есть получается замороженное именно военное поле действия. Это объясняется многими конкретными понятиями, например, того, что на двух сторонах.
They have to be free to have this choice and they be free to choose the destination that they want to reach. I have to say that people inside of the front, for example, but even in Mariupol, they were afraid. Some of them, they waited until a first group went out to have an idea and understand where these people were going to be taken to make sure they are reassured that they could choose their destination. So it's a fear, it's a genuine fear that they have, that they're going to be able to choose or not. But the whole purpose of accompanying this evacuation process by the United Nations and our colleagues from the ICRC is to make sure that the people that can have this choice and people that were evacuated with our support, they have this choice.
Saviano Abreu there with the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs there. Thank you very much for the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
QIWI correspondent Emmanuel Chaz is in Lviv. She told me how Ukrainian forces are holding up against Russia's eastern offensive.
Well, Gerhard, this really is very volatile. We've heard that overnight shelling, of course, on eastern Ukraine from Russian forces. Some missiles fell on Kramatorsk, causing 20 people being injured. The Sumy region was hit 40 times with no injury reported there, while the gaze around the cities of Kharkiv, Kherson and Mykolaiv, the situation is very volatile. As I was saying, some territories gained, some others lost, with Ukrainian armed forces acknowledging that Russia had taken a string of villages in the east, but also we're mentioning Mariupol. This is where all eyes here in Ukraine and perhaps also in the world are turned at the moment, with hundreds of civilians still trapped there, along with soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers who have called on the international community and on the rest of Ukrainian forces to come to their rescue. They've said it time and again. Ukrainian soldiers in Mariupol will not surrender to the Russian forces.
It's been ramping up its attacks, also striking infrastructure deep inside Ukraine, partly to stop weapons from the west to get into the front lines. Has that been successful?
In western Ukraine, that Russia seems to have